Words of joy and hope. Third Sunday of Advent, Year B. Gospel according to John chapter 1, verses 6 to 8 and 19 to 28. Commentary of Father Fernando Armelini. A good Sunday to everyone. The first words that God pronounces in the Bible are, "Let there be light." And God saw that light was good, and separated the light from the darkness. From then on, throughout the Bible, light is always the symbol of what is positive, of the beautiful, of the good. God is wrapped in light as in a cloak, says Psalm 104. And this symbolism continues throughout the New Testament. And it is above all John who takes it up. At the beginning of his first letter, he says, "God is light, and in him there is no darkness." And from the beginning of his gospel, in the prologue, he presents the coming of the Son of God to the world as the emergence of light. Humanity was wrapped in dense darkness, the darkness of evil, sin, injustice. And in this darkness, the light of heaven descended. How was it received? He also says it in the prologue, at the beginning of his gospel. As expected, the darkness did not resign itself to disappearing. They reacted and made war against the light. And John, in Asia Minor, in Ephesus, where he lived the last years of his life, personally experienced this dramatic opposition to the light of the gospel. Those who accepted the gospel in Asia Minor, in Ephesus, and refused to worship the statue of the beast, that is, to adapt to the criteria on which the pagan empire was based, they were discriminated and socially marginalized. But towards the end of the first century, when writing the prologue to his gospel, John could happily affirm, "The darkness has not conquered light." And after this beginning of his gospel, he introduces the figure of the Baptist. Let us hear how.
There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light.
Let us now see how John presents us with the figure of the Baptist. He says, he was a man sent by God. He had a great mission to accomplish. Each of us has a mission to fulfill in this world. How do you know what this mission is? It is only necessary that we discover our identity. When we realize who we are, we also understand what God expects of us. And we are unique in creation. If one of us does not fulfill this mission, nobody else does. As we will see, the Baptist has a very clear idea of his own identity. He knows what he is called to do in the world. Second detail that the evangelist mentions, his name was John. Yohanan in Hebrew means God is love. Here is the identity of the Baptist, the mission he is called to carry out. He must point to the person towards whom all must look at. If you want to contemplate the light of God's face, and when you look where the Baptist indicates, which is the person of Jesus, You will then discover that God is love. If instead you turn your gaze to idols that people have created, you will never see this light, will not experience the joy of discovering that God is love and only love. Third characteristic, the Baptist presented by the synoptics is the forerunner, the one who goes before the Messiah. In John, he is not a forerunner, he is a witness. We have heard it. He came to bear witness to the light so that all would believe through him. He was not the light, but a witness of the light. Not insistence on this testimony of the Baptist. The evangelist tells us that the Baptist saw the light and showed it to all of us. He testified that Jesus was the light of God. He was not the light, insists the evangelist. Insists because at the end of the first century, there were still many who professed their faith in the Baptist and considered themselves his disciples, even in opposition to Jesus. This is the reason why the evangelist says that John was not the light. He bore witness, indicated the light, and who was this light? We know it is Jesus, who has said, as the evangelist John will refer to later, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me does not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. What light is it? It is the light of the face of God. It is the light that shines on the authentic man, the successful man, the true Son of God. How did John see this light? John has seen Jesus, but not only outwardly. The Baptist saw exactly what everyone saw, and in addition, he had a look that saw beyond what appeared externally, of what was verified by all. But just like today, everyone sees Jesus, and some say, I saw an extraordinary man who marked the history of the world with his message and also with his life. But many stop there. They only see what is undeniable, something that does not need a testimony. It is enough to read it in the history books. We can bear witness to what the Baptist saw only if we also have the same experience. Otherwise, we will tell what we have read in books, and we will not convince anyone, because to understand who Jesus is, to capture this light, you have to have a special gaze to see beyond what everyone sees. And this look is given by the Spirit. The Baptist saw the Spirit settle and remain in Jesus. If we do not see this deep identity of Jesus of Nazareth, we cannot bear witness to the light of God in the face of Christ as the Baptist did. And now let us hear what is the testimony that the Baptist gave. Now, this was John's testimony when the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem sent priests and Levites to ask him who he was. He did not fail to confess, but confessed freely, I am not the Messiah. They asked him, then who are you? Are you Elijah? He said, I am not. Are you the prophet? He answered, no. Finally they said, who are you? Give us an answer to take back to those who sent us. What do you say about yourself? John replied in the words of Isaiah the prophet, I am the voice of one calling in wilderness. Make straight the way for the Lord. The historian Josephus Flavius, who lived a few years later and spoke with those who had known the Baptist, tells us that he was a good man and that he exhorted the Jews to live a righteous life and to treat each other with justice. He also says that the crowds listened to him with growing enthusiasm. He raised hope so much that the rumor spread that he was the Messiah. This growing success immediately worried, as always happens, the religious authorities from Jerusalem for the reason that light disturbs those who prefer darkness. Those who do evil hate the light. And the corrupt religious hierarchy immediately realized that they were in danger. If the light comes, darkness ends. The temple priests remembered very well what the prophet Malachi had spoken. He had threatened that one day the Lord would make a clean sweep of this unworthy religious institution, corrupt and in collusion with power. In chapter 3 says, the Lord will purify the temple, for he is like a refiner's fire and like fuller's soap. This is the reason why the religious authority sends a commission composed of priests and Levites. Why are the Levites also there? They were the sacristans in the temple. But the Levites also performed the function of policemen in the temple. If one misbehaved, they could arrest and punish him. The presence of the Levites in this commission indicates that if they discovered something wrong with the Baptist, they could also arrest him. They find him and ask him, "Who are you?" We have heard his reply, solemnly introduced. The evangelist says he confessed and not denied. He confessed, "I am not Christ." In the first place, he says what he is not because there is confusion in the environment. Some think of another identity which is different from his own, and he does not want to create a false identity. Many people like him too and would be willing to believe him if he claimed to be the Messiah. The Baptist could destroy the prestige that he is acquiring among the people. But he does not want a false identity because a false identity would lead him to carry out a mission that is not his. The Messiah is another. They ask him, "Are you Elijah?" "I am not," he replies. Why Elijah? Elijah had been taken up to heaven, and it was believed that he was not dead, that he would return before the beginning of the new world. The Baptist denied that he is Elijah. They asked him if he were a prophet, and he said no. Who was this prophet? Moses, before dying, had told the people, "One day the Lord will send a prophet like me." And the people were waiting for this prophet. This is why they asked the Baptist if he were the expected prophet. He answered, "No." Let us note the concise answers he always gives. First he says, "I am not the Christ." Then, "I am not." In the end, "No." Enough already. Our identity must be defined first of all by what we are not, because pride could lead us to create our own false identity. It would be our undoing. We are neither what people think nor want us to be. They ask him, "Tell us who you are," because we have to give an answer to those who send us. What do you say about yourself? This is a question that we must hear addressed to each of us. What do you say about yourself? How aware are you of your role in God's plan? What meaning does it have for your life? What are you doing in this world? Here is the importance of becoming aware of who we are. What do you say about yourself? Not what others say about you. The Baptist answers and now declares his identity and his mission. I, a voice. He does not say, I am. I, a voice of one who shouts in the desert. He does not appear as the word, but as the voice that is at the service of the word. Saint Augustine is the one who has said most clearly what the distinction is between voice and word. The voice is the sound. It is what I am doing at the moment. It is the sound. The voice is at the service of the word. Then the voice, the sound, must disappear, because if the sound remains, it only creates confusion. The sound must disappear so that the word remains. The Baptist is voice, not word. It is at the service of the word. Once his mission is accomplished, he must step aside. If he had wanted to remain on the scene, he would have created misunderstandings. The cult of personality would have been born. That is what ruins so many people who follow what is said about them. The applause of the flatterers are their own pride. And after clarifying who he is, the Baptist addresses these religious authorities and says, make straight the way of the Lord. You must straighten it out because you are the spiritual guides, but you have done it wrong. And those who follow your path, which you have complicated, do not see the light of the Lord. Make straight the way of the Lord. With your provisions, with your laws, with your traditions, you have complicated the path that leads to God, and people do not have access to the Lord because of you. Let us now listen to the meaning that the Baptist gives to the baptism that he administers.
Now the Pharisees who had sent questioned him. Why then do you baptize if you are not the Messiah, nor Elijah, nor the prophet? I baptize with water, John replied. But among you stand one you do not know. He is the one who comes after me. The straps of those sandals I am not worthy to untie. And this all happened at Bethany on the other side of Jordan, where John was baptizing.
The belief was widespread in Israel that the Messiah who would come into the world would administer baptism. This is the reason why the commission of priests and Levites sent from Jerusalem asks the Baptist, if you are not the Messiah or Elijah or the prophet, why do you baptize? What is the point of your baptism? John clarifies, my baptism is completely different from that of the Messiah. I baptize with water. Baptism has this meaning. Become aware that there is a need to change your life, to become aware that you still have to change and that a light is needed. Look, you were sent by the Pharisees. Look around. The Pharisees do not come to be baptized by me because they are convinced that they already have the full light. They don't want to realize that they are still in the dark. Look, I brought the people out of Judea and I have baptized them here in Bethabara. I led them back to the pagan land only for them to realize they need to retrace the Exodus path to reach the true promised land. And whoever introduces them to this authentic promised land will be that light that I will indicate. And then the Baptist clarifies his position towards the one who is going to come from the light that he will indicate. And he does it with an image that his listeners know very well because they understand about the law and about the legal aspects of life. The Baptist says, I am not worthy to bend over to untie the straps of sandals of the one who must come. This expression is so important that in the New Testament it is repeated 5 times. It has been interpreted as a sign of humility on the part of the Baptist. No, it is much more. It alludes to a practice well known in the Bible and that is also well understood by those who have come to interview the Baptist because they know the legal aspects of life. The practice of halitza, the removing of the footwear, what does it consist of? We must refer to the famous custom of levirate that consisted of when a childless man dies, his brother had to take the widow with him, but it was not always easily done, either because the widow didn't like her husband's brother or that the brother did not want to share his inheritance with the widow's son because this son was not his own. And moreover, the child bore his brother's name. Thus, when one refused to assume one's duty, this task passed to another, and there were legislations that established to decide who should succeed the brother who refused to follow the law. And when one took the place of the brother, the disobedient brother had to appear in front of the city gate, in front of witnesses, and a sandal was removed from his foot with a spat on his face. You have refused to do your duty, and that's why I take your place. And this gesture was called the no sandals. The untying or removal of sandal meant that now the right to be the husband of the woman is passed to another. What is the Baptist trying to say? They understood it very well. It means I have no right to take off his sandal. Israel, the Lord's wife, was infertile because she had turned away from her husband, from the Lord. From the prophet Hosea onwards, all the prophets used this wonderful image of the Lord who is the husband and Israel as his wife. But if the wife has become estranged from her husband, she becomes infertile. The Baptist says that now the husband is coming. I am the husband's friend. I am glad because now I hear his voice. I have no right to take off his sandal. He is the husband. I do everything possible for this wedding to be fruitful. It is a wonderful message that is offered to us this Sunday. First of all, let us become aware that we too are still shrouded in darkness. Perhaps we have intuited something, yes, of the light of Christ, but perhaps He is among us and we still do not know Him. We must grasp the message that the Baptist gives us. Become aware of your condition. If you do not have the light of Christ, you do not reach the land of freedom. I wish you all a blessed Sunday and a good preparation for the coming of the Lord.